With a growing concern over the notion that chemical and biological weapons were unaccounted for and could potentially fall into the hands of terrorists, the Department of Defense wanted to test the nation's readiness for such an emergency. In June 2001, the DoD conducted a war game called Operation Dark Winter.
Dark Winter was a major exercise that was done prior to 9/11, earlier in 2001, to look at the effects of a biological terror event. And it was kind of a scary scenario. We would lose a lot of people if a really effective bioterror event occurred.
The simulation evaluated the government's ability to respond and communicate with the public, and the exercise even included mock news reports.
Since the diagnosis of 20 smallpox cases in Oklahoma City 12 days ago, hundreds have now died, thousands have become infected.
We had to, think about things like, quarantines and martial law, and things like that. All of a sudden, our system wasn't our system anymore because we had this terrible thing going on, and we had to change. We had to, change the way we thought about things. We had to change the way the military interrelated with the civilian world, and it was really an eye-opener.
And the conclusion were tens of millions of deaths, no commerce between states, no airplanes flying for 6 months, and war between Oklahoma and Texas.
Britain is braced for a dark winter as new measures are deployed to stem a surge of coronavirus. It's feared new cases will near 50,000 a day next month, with many deaths to follow. But fearing economic meltdown too, it's lockdown light for now. The onus put on people to follow the rules. If the new moves fail, existing social restrictions could get even tougher and last 6 months. Many now crying Christmas is cancelled.
Your reaction, and just 40% of Americans say they would definitely agree to take a coronavirus vaccine if it was approved by the government. What steps would you take to give Americans confidence in a vaccine if it were approved?
Make sure it's totally transparent. Have the scientists of the world see it, know it, look at it, go through all the processes. And by the way, this is the same fellow who told you this is going to end by Easter last time. This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. We're about to go into a dark winter, and he has no clear plan, and there's no prospect that there's going to be a vaccine available for the majority of the American people before the middle of next year.
President Trump, your reaction, he says you have no plan.
I don't think we're going to have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country. We've learned and studied and understand the disease, which we didn't at the beginning. When I closed and banned China,
turns cartwheels across the floor. I was feeling kind of seasick. The crowd called out for more. The room was humming harder as the ceiling flew away. Told his tale that her face at first just ghostly turned the wider shade of pale.
Israel and China have developed stronger economic ties in recent years as Chinese companies have become more and more interested in Israeli innovations and tech, investing millions in the startup nation. And today, any startup that wants to be truly global needs to conquer the notoriously difficult to penetrate Chinese market. And so Israeli companies too are looking east. And here to discuss the blooming Israel-China tech relationship and all its complexities is Tehila Levi-Lati, a partner at Zag SW law firm and head of the China and East Asia practice. She's accompanied dozens of startups and companies doing business in China. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, how would you characterize the Israeli-Chinese relationship in terms of tech and innovation?
I think that China looks at Israel as an innovation hub, and because the relationship between China and Israel are quite good, it's a good opportunity for Chinese companies to come to Israel and to have all kind of collaboration and investment in Israeli companies in order to bring the technology back to China. So from their point of view, I think it's like...
This is actually part of a plan. They lay it out in their 5-year plans for the technology they want to acquire. If they can generate it indigenously, great. If they can't, because they want to get it fast, they'll steal it.
China alone is responsible for hacks to almost 700 public and private targets in the U.S. in the last 5 years.
One of the reasons why China's most sophisticated airplane looks like the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter is because they stole some of the technology from the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter.
When you look at pictures of it, you go, man, that looks familiar.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg from the Chinese side.
Google says it and at least 20 other companies were victims of a targeted cyber attack originating in China.
A very sophisticated cyber attack on the health insurer Anthem.
This intrusion is once again the work of state-sponsored espionage groups based in China.
And then the Chinese escalated. They spent a year inside the Office of Personnel Management, the most boring bureaucracy in America.
They stole 22 million files of highly classified security clearance applications. That is an intelligence nightmare. The Chinese now have all sorts of detailed information about your family members, foreign friends that you may have, that could be used to actually recruit assets for the Chinese government sometime in the future.
By 2020, they were back at it in a much more sophisticated way.
The FBI and federal cybersecurity agents are warning that hackers linked to the Chinese government are trying to steal research on coronavirus vaccines and therapies.
The way jet fighter designs might have been a decade ago. Coronavirus has become the holy grail because the country that wins the race for the vaccine and the treatment of COVID-19 will become a new kind of power, able to spread that vaccine around the world. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, as China has spread its economic tentacles through the world, it has recognized that the networks it is selling to everybody else across fiber optic cable and 5G networks gives them an element of control that a few years ago they could scarcely have even imagined.
Government procurement agreement in China will be open also for foreign companies. So there are some good things that are going out from that. Other than that, I think for Israeli companies, because of the trade war and because of the tension, we see less and less Chinese companies that actually invest in the US. But they still want to invest and they still want the technology. So then there is more free money that actually is coming to Israel.
Into Israel.
Yeah.
And so are we going to see more investments in Israeli startups in the near future?
I believe that we are going to see more and more investment, that we are going to see more and more collaboration, maybe like by JV or other collaboration, but it's for sure something that the trend will grow.
Mm-hmm. And so my final question, where do you envision the future of the Israeli-China tech relationship or investment relationship going?
I think that Israel is in a very unique stage right now because the relationship with China is, like, from economic point of view, it's very good relationships. So the opportunity is there, and as more and more Israeli companies will go to China and they will have a successful collaboration with the Chinese companies and will penetrate the market quite successfully, it will be a huge opportunity for Israeli companies because they cannot only trust like the U.S. market. They need to, in order to be global, you need also the Chinese market. So I believe that like if they will have more and more collaboration, then it will be very helpful for the Israeli companies and for Israel economy.
Okay, well, Tehila, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
I don't believe that. No, I don't think the Israelis were spying on us. I really would find that hard to believe. My relationship with Israel has been great. You look at Golan Heights, you look at Jerusalem with moving the embassy to Jerusalem, becoming the capital. You look at even the Iran deal, what's happened with Iran. Iran is a much different country right now than it was 2.5 years ago. It's in a much different position. No, I don't believe that. I wouldn't believe that story. It's good. Anything's possible, but I don't believe it.